Yo, welcome back YouTube family. It's your boy Koozie back at you with another hot TikTok reaction video. Today we will be reacting to some strange and bizarre TikToks. I'm talking about the kind that's gonna have you questioning reality. With that said, yeah, I've been gone for a little bit, but I'm back with some new hot content. I'm talking about some stuff that you definitely don't want to miss. Y'all don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you be notified whenever I drop some new fire content that you definitely don't want to miss, just like this. Let's get it.
There's an imposter among us who is coming for us. There's an imposter among us. Whoa.
Oh shoot.
Do you know Cesare Borgia? How about now? Caesar was Pope Alexander IV's son. Famous painter Leonardo da Vinci painted Caesar in the famous image globally known as Jesus Christ. The Bible bewares they'd come with another Jesus that isn't preached, changing the image of Jesus Christ into Cesare Borgia, who was a monster even his own mother and sister. If Jesus is described like this in the Bible, why are the real images hidden from public?
Come on now.
He was the Pope's son. He was a monster. Painted by world-famous Leonardo, who altered the image of Jesus Christ as we know it. This is Cesare Borgia.
How many out there knew that that was a false painting of the Christ? How many of y'all out there knew that that was Cesare Borgia? Let me know down below.
History down today, we're going to talk about Cesare Borgia. So most people know him as the main character from the book The Prince, wrote by Niccolo Machiavelli, which the book is about how Machiavelli thinks you should run a government, and if you've ever read it, it's pretty dark, brutal, and cunning, and that's the type of guy we got right here. So Cesare Borgia was the son of Pope Alexander IV, and he would go on to murder his brother and steal his political title. Then he would go on to become a cardinal and be the first person to resign in the hopes that he would further his political and military ambitions of like uniting all the papal states and becoming their king. What's funny though is Cesare Borgia was known for his undeniable beauty, which is the reason why Jesus is portrayed as this. Even though Jesus probably looked like a homeless Arabic guy, do you want portraits of a homeless Arabic guy throughout your church and your house? Or do you want a picture of the most beautiful man on the planet at the time? So even though this guy is an undeniable asshole, we chose him as our depiction of Jesus instead of the actual one.
Salvator Mundi is the Latin for Saviour of the.
What do you think about that?
Cesare was born in either 1475 or 1476 in Subiaco, which is a town in the metropolitan city of Rome. He was the illegitimate son of Cardinal Borgia, who was commonly known as Rodrigo Borgia, who later became Pope Alexander VI. Corrupts.
The Borgias were a very powerful family, and yes, they do have descendants today, many in fact, one very cool one though. Pope Alexander VI literally purchased the papacy. He married his daughter into a powerful family, extending the dynasty. He did the same with his psychopathic son, whilst putting him in control of armies. Rodrigo Borgia Savelos is their descendant. He was the president of Ecuador from 1988 to 1992. He has produced for children. So the line continues.
Till this day, ain't that something?
Have you heard of history's original crime family? Let me tell you all about the Borgias. Now, even today, the name Borgia is synonymous with greed, with lust, and with extreme ambition. Now, these guys were the real deal. They murdered, they bribed, they blackmailed, they forced, they cajoled, they scrambled up that social ladder of the 15th and early 16th centuries from relative obscurity to the very pinnacle of social and spiritual prestige. Intrigued? Stay tuned and I'll tell you all about it. Now, this family might have achieved greatness, but they certainly weren't born into it. Yes, they were born into nobility, but relatively minor nobility in what is modern day Spain, in an area called Aragon, in a town called Borgia, and that is where they took their name from. However, one of their sons was to change all of that. He was to take this family from being a big fish in a small pond to being the biggest fish in the biggest pond in the world. Because this chap here, Alphonse de Borgia, after a lifetime in the church, was finally elected to the papal throne in 1455 as Pope Calixtus III, and with that, his family's rise to greatness was assured. Now, he didn't reign for long. He had about a 3-year papacy, but that was long enough for him to set the seeds of that rise. He brought his nephew Rodrigo to the Vatican, he made him a cardinal, and that put him in a position to navigate the family's future in what was then one of the most glittering courts in Europe, that of St. Peter's in Rome. Now, Rodrigo was only 25 when he became a cardinal, but that didn't stop him from getting to work as soon as he arrived in Rome. Over the next several years, he spent his time manoeuvring from church office to church office, building connections and building wealth that would enable him to put himself at the very centre of papal affairs. He quickly became a very powerful figure within the papal curia, that's the ruling body of cardinals in the Vatican, and he proved to be instrumental in the election of several popes before, in 1492, Pope Innocent VIII finally passed away, and that gave him the opportunity to vie for power himself. Now, there's a sin in the church called simony, and roughly what it translates to is the paying of money for advancement within the church. But you know, Rodrigo was never really bothered about sin. Even though he was a man of the cloth, he saw money as something to be used, and he'd made a lot of it in his various positions within the church over the years. And so, during the conclave which followed Pope Innocent VIII's death, he simply went around the other cardinals and promised them the earth if they would give him their vote. The majority of them did, and as a result, Rodrigo ascended to the papal throne as Pope Alexander VI. Do you think he changed once he entered the chair of St. Peter? Not at all. This man continued the way he'd been going, and then more so. He enriched himself further. He lived more lavishly than he had ever lived before, and he practiced nepotism like it was going out of fashion. Now, Rodrigo Borgia, Alexander VI, whatever you want to call him, was a great man. He'd been a great man even when he was a cardinal, and as a result, he didn't really particularly bother himself with trifling things like, sin. And so, as a result, he had broken his vows of celibacy many times throughout his career and had kept many mistresses. And those many mistresses had given him many children, the 3 most famous of whom are, of course, Juan Borgia, Cesare Borgia, and the infamous Lucrezia Borgia. Rodrigo was the Pope now. Who was going to tell him he was wrong? There was nothing to bar him from admitting that these children were his own and from using them as political pawns to seal deals that he wanted to make with other powerful people. And not only that, because as soon as Alexander slipped his little feet into those red papal slippers, his family from Spain came charging towards the centre of power in Rome in the hope that he would give them advancement, and invariably he did. Rodrigo Borgia was on a mission to elevate his name and his house into the highest ranks of the courts of Europe, and if you bore the name Borgia, you could have been certain of a very, very warm welcome in the Palace of St. Peter under Alexander VI. However, this reputation for nepotism soon began to cause Alexander trouble. People began to talk, people began to resent this Borgia family taking over all the great offices of state within the Vatican, and that wasn't to be Alexander's only headache. As his children grew, they too would begin to cause him trouble. To begin with, there was his beautiful and infamous daughter Lucrezia. He married this woman off 3 times to suit himself. The first at the age of only 12 to a husband whom he eventually discarded. He had the marriage annulled when it no longer suited him. The second, it's rumoured that he had her husband bumped off, and the third, thankfully, lasted and seemed to make her happy. However, such was his fascination with his daughter, the rumour mill in Rome at the time was turning fiercely, suggesting that there was something really improper about the father-daughter relationship between Alexander and Lucrezia, and that is a rumour which persists to this very day. And then there was this chap here, Juan Borgia, the Pope's absolutely favourite son. He doted on this young man until he was found floating very dead one day in the Tiber River. And once again that rumour mill began to grind, and the finger that it was pointing at was this chap. His younger son, and perhaps the most famous of all of his children, Cesare Borgia. Now, as a younger son, Cesare had been marked for the church, and by the time of Juan's murder, he'd actually been elevated to the cardinalate. However, the death of the eldest son put him in a very different position indeed. Eventually, the Pope released him of his vows. He allowed him to go to France, where he found himself a French princess as a bride. He was then basically allowed to go on rampage around Italy, conquering territory after territory, and he soon became one of the most feared and famous generals of his time. And he was absolutely ruthless with it. He once invited all of his enemies to a special meeting of reconciliation, only to have them all executed as soon as they arrived. However, in 1503 the unthinkable happened. The head of the family, the grand patriarch of the whole operation, Rodrigo Borgia, Pope Alexander VI, died, leaving the whole Borgia project in a parlous condition indeed. Now, Lucrezia would be okay. She had found happiness and stability with her husband, and together they ruled their duchy. But for Cesare, it would be a very different matter indeed. Suddenly, Daddy wasn't the Pope anymore, and there was a new Pope in town who had absolutely no time for Borgia ambition and ruthlessness. So, he cut the loose cannon which Cesare Borgia had become completely off from papal finances and support. Cesare was now something of a pathetic figure. He was at the lowest ebb of his life. He was disfigured by syphilis. It said he had to wear a leather mask on his face to cover his disfigurement after so many years of debauchery. He was cut off from the source of power, which had been the papacy, which he'd been so used to throughout his life, and he was now stateless. He fled to France and was taken in by his friend and brother-in-law, the King of Navarre, and finally he died in battle in Spain in 1507. And so came to a sputtering end the great career of a family who had really become the benchmark of all that was decadent and dangerous during the Italian Renaissance. And ever since their time on earth, the rumours of passion and poisonings and ambition and intrigue and murder have filled the pages of books for centuries since, including one written by this chap here. His name is Niccolo Machiavelli, and you may have heard of the book that he wrote in honour of Cesare Borgia himself, the Prince. This family were the real deal when it came to dirty dealings, and their name has remained the benchmark for villainous families ever since. As always, I want to hear from you. What do you think of the Borgias? Tell me in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Is this the most controversial family of all time? A family so hated that its apartments in the Vatican were shut and sealed for centuries. A family whose name came to symbolise corruption and excess. This is the House of Borgia. This family would produce 2 popes. First up was Pope Calixtus, who compared to his nephew had a pretty uneventful reign as pope. Most famous, however, is most likely the untrue story that he excommunicated Halley's Comet. But one thing he did do was make his nephew a cardinal. This is Rodrigo Borgia, who would serve as Vice-Chancellor of the Church, or basically the number 2 behind the Pope, from 1457 until 1492. The Borgias were of Spanish origin and thus were hated by the Italian families of Rome, but Rodrigo Borgia was power-hungry, determined, and didn't really care for the rules. And so he would keep countless mistresses, with whom one he had many children. And in 1492 one cardinal would say, "Now we are in the power of a wolf, the most rapacious perhaps that this world has ever seen, and if we do not flee, he will devour us all." That cardinal was talking about Rodrigo Borgia, who had just been elected Pope Alexander VI. And soon the Pope announced that his 3 nephews and 1 niece, well, they weren't nephews and nieces, but his sons and daughters. Being the child of a pope was a pretty sweet gig, for back then it meant you could pretty much do whatever you pleased, and indeed the Borgias did whatever they pleased. Rodrigo continued to have a mistress even as Pope, Giuliana Farnese. The Pope's eldest son was Juan, a drunken fool who was in charge of the papal guard and was truly incompetent, but one day he rounds up found in the Tiber, having been assassinated. The most likely suspect is his younger brother Cesare, however, there's no proof for this. Cesare is actually a cardinal, but soon becomes the first person in history to resign from the post. He then takes his brother's place as the head of the papal guard and seeks to carve out for himself an empire in central Italy, and he proves remarkably successful. Cesare serves as the inspiration for Machiavelli's The Prince, and he actually has Leonardo da Vinci serve on his war cabinet, creating weapons of war. Next you have Lucrezia, who's the daughter of the Pope, and her first husband is accused of being impotent, so his family, the Sforza, spread rumours that Lucrezia sleeps both with her brothers and her father. Entirely untrue rumours, but they continue to persist to the modern day, and Lucrezia's second husband is assassinated, most likely by her brother Cesare. Her third husband actually outlives her, but Lucrezia Borgia comes to symbolise female strength during the High Renaissance and proves a formidable character in her own right, accused of doing all manner of things from poisoning to assassinations. Although I guess the poisoning would be how she assassinates people. Rodrigo also had a younger son named Goffredo, who lived as a nobleman in Naples. However, his wife was said to have carried out affairs both with Goffredo's brothers Juan and Cesare. The family was said to have scandalised the Vatican and held wild parties, including the infamous Banquet of the Chestnuts, where the most wild and bizarre things occurred, and you'll have to look it up, it's pretty crazy. However, when the Pope passed away, the family's fortunes took a turn for the worst. And while Cesare was arguably the most powerful man in central Italy, once a new Pope was elected who absolutely despised the Borgia, Cesare was soon overthrown and thrown in a Spanish prison before escaping, going to the Kingdom of Navarre, where his brother-in-law was king, before being taken out in battle. The next Pope, Giuliano della Rovere, sealed shut the Borgia apartments, and they remained sealed until the 19th century. However, one Borgia further down the line, Francis Borgia, would actually become a saint. And while we don't know how true some of the stories were, and most likely most were slander from enemies, we do know one thing, that the House of Borgia remains known to this very day, and known for being one of the most scandalous families in history. I hope you enjoyed.
For real, man, let me know what y'all think about that down below in the comment section. The Borgia family is something else. Cesare Borgia, hey, man, y'all have a hell of a reputation throughout history, man. The things that went on in those rooms behind closed doors, man, hey, it's just rumors what we hearing, but hey, the flies on the wall knew everything. Believe that. For what happened to Rodrigo, do y'all believe it was an assassination by the daughter and one of the sons, or the daughter and the son, Cesar? Or who was it? Was it an enemy within, or was it an enemy without, on the outside of the kingdom walls? Let me know what you believe down below in the comment section. And if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe so you can see more videos just like this.
In the name of the Father. In the name of the Son.
Yeah.
In the name of... Whose son is this?
Whose son is that?
I mean, whose son is this fella?
That's right.
This is Baal's son.
Baal's son.
This is the devil's son. This is the son of a liar.
That's right.
You would say, oh, he called Jesus a liar. That's not Jesus. That's not Jesus. That's not Jesus. I said that's not Jesus. And that's not Jesus either.
Go ahead.
So get up off your knees. Stop making a cross.
That's right.
Get up off your knees.
And the congregation said, Amen.
I'm just gonna come out and tell you guys that this is not what Jesus looks like. Neither is this. A lot of the modern paintings and depictions of Jesus are actually portraits of a former pope's son whose name is Cesare Borgia. He was an Italian mobster who was captain of the papal military in the 1500s and also the son of Pope Alexander V of Rome. A competition broke out between Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci to see who could impress the Pope more by painting a new image of the Pope's son that would deceive the world into thinking that Caesar was Jesus. I'm about to show you guys what Jesus actually looks like. Let me introduce you to this girl. Her name is Akiana. She began having encounters and visions of Jesus at the age of 4. And by the age of 8, she painted a beautiful photo of Jesus. And I don't know about you guys, but this sits very comfortable in my spirit compared to these. Here's another one she painted called I Am. I believe that's a younger version of Jesus. Here's a video of a young boy who actually encountered Jesus while he was in the hospital.
God really told me. Just sing the Bible songs like it, so don't disconnect. It's not how he looks. I go to St. Philip Mary Church, that's not how he looks in there. He has like a beard, he doesn't have long hair, he has short hair. His eyes are the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Mom, if you've seen that, if you would have saw them, you would have said they were beautiful, more beautiful than mine. And his lips, they never chapped inside. Even happens, like it was just perfect. His lips were perfect.
Notice how he said he goes to St. Philip Neri Church, and the pictures that they have of Jesus in there are not what he actually looks like, which is this. We'll just leave you guys with this here one more time. God bless you guys. Like and follow, and I'll see you in the next one.
We know the truth now. Seek and you shall receive.
Recently in a video, I made the statement that Jesus was black, and I'm surprised how many people are still like, what? Wait a minute, what the hell are you talking about? Let's review, shall we? We know he was born and raised in an area that would have at the very least made him very dark-skinned Middle Eastern. And in Revelations, he's described as having hair like wool and skin like burnished bronze. So that certainly isn't a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy who looks like he should be singing for the Bee Gees. But one comment was interesting. The guy asked, well then why throughout history is he depicted as white? Let's look at that. Most of those depictions trace back to Leonardo da Vinci. Pope Alexander VI commissioned him to paint a likeness of Jesus, and da Vinci asked for a model. The Pope recommended his illegitimate son, Cesare Borgia. Cesare was an interesting dude. For one, he was reportedly the gay lover of da Vinci. He also loved to brag about repeatedly having sex with his own sister. And most depictions of Christ after were based on that painting. So that picture in your grandma's house is based on a gay bastard who liked incest.
If that's not blasphemous, man, I don't know what is. And oh boy, in the clip before this, he was on to something until he showed the picture. We all know that if you in the scripture and stuff and you've been reading the Bible, you know what it says. Just like what he said, the skin of burnt bronze. That was nowhere close. Come on, man. Anything get burnt, especially something like that bronze, so you know what color it is, and there's nothing light. It's gonna be dark. Facts are facts, man. That's all I'm gonna say.
Sword of Cesare Borgia. He was one of the children of Pope Alexander and general to the papal armies who was able to conquer much of Italy. So they date the sword sometime back to 1493 or 1498 due to an inscription on the sword referring to him with his title as cardinal. Both the handle and the blade of the sword are gilt in gold, while the handle is also decorated with ornamental filigree work and colored enamel. So overall, it's made of steel, silver, gold, and enamel, and the total length of the sword is 40.5 inches. The blade itself is etched and divided into 8 sections, depicting 4 different scenes on each side. And one of those sections has a monogram with the Spanish version of his name. And the other 6 sections depict classical scenes and the triumphs of Julius Caesar. There's also 4 inscriptions in Latin that read, "A favorable omen with Caesar's divine will. The die is cast, to the well-deserving, and faith is more prevalent than arms." And then we have this scabbard that dates back to 1498, and it's also beautifully decorated, although not completed. On one side, it has the emblem with his name on it and some flames. Here you can see more of them. And on the front side, it has a scene with the goddess of peace. Here's a really good close-up so you can see all the detail on that. There's also an inscription in Latin that reads, "Effort will prevail over material." And here's a really cool look at the unfinished part of it. You can see they had already started some figures on there. And an interesting note, when they brought this into the museum in 1869, it was listed in the report as one of the finest pieces of art in leather known.
Man, was that sword for war or was it for just decorations? I'm kind of confused, man. That was a little flashy much, wasn't it? Let me know what you believe about that down below in the comments.
Shocking. The Vatican's darkest secret exposed. Borgia wasn't just corrupt. He was pure evil, sitting on the papal throne as Pope Alexander VI. In 1492, he bought his way to power with chests of gold, bribing cardinals to crown him pope. Once in control, he moved his mistress and their illegitimate children into the Vatican, turning its sacred halls into a den of scandal. His infamous chestnut feasts were the height of depravity. Dozens of courtesans crawled on the floor collecting chestnuts, while high-ranking church officials watched in twisted amusement. For Alexander, this was just another evening's entertainment. But the darkness ran even deeper. He had a poison ring, silencing enemies with cantarella, a deadly toxin. His daughter, Lucretia, was said to test poisons on prisoners chosen at random, just for fun. Each morning, the Tiber River carried away the lifeless bodies of their victims. Eventually, karma struck. Alexander VI accidentally drank poison meant for someone else. His body became so grotesquely bloated that no one dared touch it. Ropes were used to drag his corpse to its burial in St. Peter's Basilica. The most chilling part, his portrait still hangs in the Vatican as if he were just another holy leader instead of the most corrupt pope in history. Evil once wore the papal crown, and this is just the beginning. If you want to uncover more secrets, leave a comment below.
Who runs the world? They started from wealthy families, oligarchic families of Genoa and Venice in Italy. And in the 12th century, they held the privileged trading rights, which means monopolies. It's a secret shadow hierarchy. The one at the top, what is called the papal bloodlines. The Black Pope is the one controlling the biggest intelligence agency in the world. They belong to the Jesuit order. What is called the black nobility families are the royal families across the world, mainly in Europe. The one who is the most powerful, which the Windsors are connected to, is Guelph. JFK was from such a family, but apparently he misled the cabal, and that's why, unfortunately, he was assassinated. The black nobility founded the Club of Rome, the Council on Foreign Relations. They appoint the presidents and the prime ministers worldwide, as well as having immense influence over the finances, over every aspect of our life.
What you think about that? Ain't that something? The Black Pope. Man, that Pope, old Rodrigo, man, hey, that kind of, make your mind want to, don't it? Be like, man, say, so that means all the popes ain't who they got the world thinking they are, This some of them are evil, common, like him, he was a mafia boss, man. He was a mob boss, man. At the end of the day, that's what I seen him as by listening to what we hearing now today, right now. But don't go with what I'm thinking or what I'm saying or what you think in these videos. I mean, go off what you see in these videos, but always use your own conclusion. Come to your own conclusion, and always do your own research. Use your own discernment. Don't go with off what I say and what you see in these videos, because it could be a lie, it could be fake. That's all I'm saying.
The hidden truth is, Jacques I was born to the imperium of can become an emperor before their masters, let alone the ruler of the world. Most people have no idea how transfer of power works, especially in the ancient world. It's a tradition of high-born nobility. Houses, you have to be of the bloodline. Ain't no slaves from somewhere can become an emperor of the world, specifically in the time of slavery. Based to their historical records and story, not a single slave ship survived as proofs of this mythical transatlantic slaves trades. In Haiti or East Haiti, there is not one slave dungeon that was discovered. Makes you wonder how long they've been manipulating and bury the truth. Haiti has the most military forts, surrounds the island, with a prime location for imports and exports, with good tactical and a variety of range, including the greatest military fortress in the world, the eighth wonder, known as the Citadel La Ferrière. All signs pointed out that Haiti, the empire, had never been colonized. The name of the army tell a different story from their history books, that they unalive all of the indigenous people from the land, that they have to bring African slaves, and when it all comes together, one asks the question, why these African slaves didn't call that army after themselves? Why did they call it the indigenous army with Jacques I as the emperor, also known as the Inca's emperor army? Proves to you the length they will go, the lifetime dedication, the lengths and measures that's been taken to reclassify and manipulate the timeline of the Empire of Haiti.
Ain't that so? Just a little something to make your mind go, We've been lied to so much. It's time for the truth to come out, you know what I'm saying? Evil will not prevail. Never forget that. Most of all, don't fall for the boo-boo man. Go down in the video description and go get your merch now. When I say now,
if you enjoy the content, please donate $9.99 and become a member by helping us create more high-quality content. Stay tuned for part 2 of the
Go get your merch now in the video description. We have some new ideas, some new shirts, some new, we got some new stuff out right now. You know what I'm saying? New products. Y'all go out and find what you want, put it in the shopping cart, pay for it, and get it right to your front door. Now, I appreciate all the love and support, all y'all, all the new subscribers, all of my day one subscribers. I appreciate y'all always. And like I always say, catch me in the next video. Meet me there? Nah, don't meet me there. Beat me there, don't meet me there. It's your boy Coozie, I'm out. Holla.